Coming up, the most athletic, high-ceiling players on the Vikings 90-man roster, plus a look at the Vikings 2024 draft picks after they traded Za'Darius Smith. It's all coming up next on a special draft edition of the Football Party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Back in the lab, another edition of the Football Party on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network, your daily breakdown, everything Minnesota Vikings, which you can now find streaming on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick devices. Just look out for and download our Locked On Sports Minnesota app there as well. See that? That's Sam Ekstrom. He's on Twitter, at Sam Ekstrom, co-host of the Ron Johnson Show, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sam, what's shaking? Did you stay up for that Twins game last night? West Coast 12-inning slugfest?
You know I did. I love West
not.
Coast games. No, I did. I watched every pitch.
Wow.
All the ones that were strikes, all the ones that were balls, all the ones that were called wildly incorrectly, all the fair balls that were called foul and the foul balls that were called fair. It was absurd. Very disappointing. And I'm tired.
Trevor Larnach, though, got the hot bat as of late. Finally, a little juice in the lineup, it feels like here. So hopefully they can continue that. I figured only our guy Brandon Warren probably stayed up for that one. Still, that's just ridiculous time for us back in the Central Time Zone. West Coast goes 12 innings. Good for you. A little quick golf clap for you. Well done. First things first, LockedOnPodcast.com/newsletters. If you haven't already, go sign up for the weekly NFL Draft newsletter. It's up on the Locked On homepage. Punch in your email, get all the latest news and notes surrounding the NFL Draft. Go check it out and sign up for free today. Also, don't forget, this episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook partner of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. All right, let's dive into it, Sam. Dust has settled on this draft class now. Vikings 90-man roster, that's set. You got minicamp going on now. Got our first look at everyone in their new unis. We'll touch on all that right at the end in that third segment coming up. Get a little update from their time at TCO. But here's what I want to talk about today, because I was listening to the Move the Sticks podcast yesterday, all right? Shout out DJ and Bucky Brooks, two of my faves. They were gushing about Chris Ballard in the Indianapolis Colts and how the draft they put together was all about the traits. That's Ballard's MO, always has been, always will be. The high upside players. And what I loved was Bucky Brooks compared it to the NBA and building a super team, and how Anthony Richardson, for example, he's a lot like Giannis coming out. Big, physical, fast, high upside, freaky traits type of player. And with Ballard, it's never really been about the production or the tape in college, but instead it's more about we just want to find the best athletes with the best natural God-given talent. And we, as coaches, we can teach them the skills to play at a higher level. That's exactly what you're seeing in the NBA playoffs right now, by the way. I mean, you look at all these teams who have skill developing coaches. You got a shooting coach now, right? You got a ball handling coach. You got a coach who works on the footwork for the post players, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I don't think the NFL thinks about the players and skill sets quite to that degree, but you do have more coaches and staff than we've ever had in the NFL right now. You got position coaches. He's got an assistant. That guy's got a backup. And then you even got specialists going now. You got a pass rush specialist, for example. So you look at the Colts draft the past few years, it is just off the charts athletes, top to bottom, especially this year. You and I, we were both obsessed with the draft they put together. Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs, your guy, Julius Brents, my guy, Adebawore, Blake Freeland, the tackle from BYU, he broke multiple combine records. And now they got all the talent. Now it's up to the coaches to teach and develop all that raw talent. So you sit back now and you think, how good could that team be if the organization does their job, maximizes every player's unique skill set? And obviously, you're not going to hit on every single pick. Just doesn't happen. Doesn't work like that. But when you do hit on a couple of these guys, they aren't singles or doubles, speaking of the Twins last night. These are home run type of swings. And when you hit on one of these guys, you've now just found a near elite type of player. You have an edge versus your opponent at that position or on that one-on-one matchup every game, every week. And it's just something I've slowly become extremely fascinated with the more I think about it more and more. Bringing it back to the NBA again, just full circle here before we start. It's all about the super teams in basketball now, right? You got guys like Giannis, 15th overall pick. Jokic, second rounder. I didn't know that. I had to look that up. Pick 41. Kawhi Leonard coming out of San Diego State. Had all the traits, but hey, he's really raw. Goes 15th overall. All these guys would go, what, top 2, top 3 in a redraft, Sam? Thinking of some more examples. Westbrook coming out of UCLA. Loaded with traits. Devin Booker for the Suns. 13th overall pick. Didn't play much. Didn't have all the tape as some other guys coming out, but all the traits, the high floor to mold. And now he's obviously, one of the biggest superstars in the entire league. So I'm intrigued. I love the Colts draft again this year with all the athletes. I love the mindset. I love the theory. Today, I think we should look at the Vikings' best and biggest athletes on the roster, go position by position, see what this Vikings coaching staff, I guess, is really working with. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Let's do it. And man, I want that Colts draft.
Oh my!
I love it so much.
It's just crazy.
I'm so in love.
All right. Let's stay focused. All right, let's
don't go there.
Let's leave out the top shelf superstars. Let's take guys like JJ and maybe Darius, just for example, off the list. We already know Justin Jefferson is the Devin Booker of the NFL, and that's fun. That's great. But let's just dig a little bit further past the surface, and let's start on the offensive side of the ball, shall we, with the pass catchers, wideouts and tight ends, group them all together. Biggest athletes. I'm going to throw a quick honorable mention at new tight end Josh Oliver. Slowly has turned himself into one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. But when he came out of San Diego State in the third round, he was a pure stand-up slot pass-catching tight end. He couldn't block, but he was one of the best natural pass-catching tight ends in the class. 6'5", 260, was the fourth most athletic tight end of that 2019 class. Ran a 4.63, which for that size is tremendous. 34-inch vert, 22 reps on the bench. This guy's a great athlete, and he has morphed into one of the better complete tight ends in the NFL. So quick shout out to Josh Oliver, but I'm going to go with KJ Osborne, believe it or not. And here's why. People forget or maybe assume because he's not the alpha number one big-bodied freak wideout that maybe he's not that athletic. Far from it, Sam. In fact, of all the wideouts in that 2020 class drafted, and there was over 30 of them, Osborne was ranked the 6th most athletic of them all. He ran in the 4.4s, off the charts 10-yard split with a 1.47, which, just for quick comparison, that would have been the second fastest 10-yard split in the entire combine this year, tied with DJ Turner, the cornerback from Michigan. His jumps were great, 38-inch vert, 10'3" broad, rock solid shuttle drills, even put up 18 reps at the bench at only 200 pounds. So KJ Osborne didn't get a ton of love from that combine, but across the board, just up and down, he was rock solid and impressed in every single one of his workouts. And I think he's far more athletic than I think people realize. And obviously he gets lost in the shuffle quite a bit behind JJ and now Jordan Addison as well. But you started to see a little bit last year, some flashes last season, his true potential. Game winner versus Detroit. He's gotten better and better every year of his career. And he really caught fire the last 4 weeks of the year last season. On average, 6.5 catches per game, 90 yards received per game. On average, the last 4 weeks of the 2022 season. So you got year 4 coming up. And now I think the best part about this whole wide receiver room, he can slide back into that wide receiver 3 where I think he's at his best. KJ Osborne, arguably the most athletic pass catcher of this group, pound for pound, that doesn't get talked about a ton from an athletic profile. And you think about the trio now too here, Sam. JJ, Addison, who just throw that stopwatch away with Jordan Addison because the kid's play speed on the field is just lightning in a bottle. I know he didn't run a blazing 40 time, came out later. He was dealing with a back injury, but then those two plus Osborne, that's a lot of athleticism in this wide receiver room. That's for sure. Athletic pass catcher. Who you got?
Yeah. So the Vikings don't necessarily have a burner at wide receiver. Justin Jefferson's a 4.43. I believe that's the best of any pass catcher. Naylor, Rager, Osborne, and Addison are all between 4.47 and 4.49. I think Rager has the most intriguing profile to me because he's not big. His vertical is 42 inches, Luke. His broad jump is 11 feet. 40-yard dash, 4.47. Crazy. But then his agility, his shuttle, his 3-cone, terrible. His 10-yard split, terrible. So he was very good at specific drills, but not the comprehensive, the comprehensive profile that you might expect. I think Osborne is a good one. I don't think that the Vikings tight ends, Ellefson, Hawkinson, not necessarily known for his athleticism. He's more about his size, his hands. Beyond Jefferson, I think you can make a great argument for Osborne. You can make a great argument for Rager and maybe even Addison, man. I mean, Addison doesn't have the testing profile, but I think he's got it on tape. If you watch his ability to subtly manipulate his movements and his feet, the way he runs routes, he screams athleticism just naturally. So even though the numbers may not be there to support it, I think Addison may end up being the top athlete in this room beyond Jefferson.
It's not so much about one individual guy, I think, when you look at this wide receiver room and the tight ends, when you combine all the pass catchers. Obviously, JJ, again, the Devin Booker, right, of the NFL, he's a freak. But you just pull them all together. The only thing that they're really missing, because it's not the athleticism or the speed. You're right, they don't have that Deshaun Jackson 4.3 burner over the top. Okay, but the athleticism is there. They're just missing that big-bodied alpha number one type of go up and get it, right? Above the rim pass catcher. Malik Knowles, Kansas State, UDFA. That's our guy. Write that name down. Listen, offensive line, I don't think we need to spend a ton of time here. Let's just say Darrisaw, he's kind of already proven how athletic he is, right? Brian O'Neill and Ezra Cleveland were both ranked in the top 5 athletically among their peers when they came out in 2018 and 2019, according to Next Gen Stats. And even Ed Ingram ranked in the 99th percentile last season in the 10-yard split. So great get off, great lower body explosion. So if you want to give us a deep dive on one of them, by all means, but I'll just say in general, this is truly one of the more athletic offensive line units in the league right now.
Well, Rick Spielman had a type. Mm-hmm. Rick Spielman was all about light, agile, mobile offensive lineman. And that
for Kubiak, right? The wide zone running scheme kind of thing, light, agile.
It goes back to even pre-Kubiak, though, because Garrett Bradbury was part of that. Brian O'Neill was part of that in 2018, right? So 2018, O'Neill comes out, has some tight end experience. I remember seeing O'Neill actually catching passes in his early OTAs. He was with the tight ends. They had him catching passes, dude. 6'7", and he ran a 4.82, just a phenomenal combine. Brian, and it worked out great, right? Brian O'Neill, he put on the weight, he kept the agility. O'Neill worked out wonderfully. And then Bradbury, who had the super athletic profile, didn't really he didn't add enough size to really handle some of those NFL nose tackles, right? So that didn't work out in the Vikings' favor.
Did Bradbury play tight end too, like first year in NC State?
I can't confirm that. Bradbury was a baseball player. Like Bradbury was a multi-sport athlete in high school, and he's really never hovered much beyond 300 pounds. He's always been light, very kind of trimmed down. He's not a big guy. He doesn't look that big of a guy, but there's been plenty of knocks on him for that over the years. I'm trying to think of a younger Viking though, who might have upside as an athlete. We liked Oli Udoh coming out. I don't know if that really panned out. Vidarian Lowe, what's his profile look like? Most of these guys are veterans and kind of established. So I can't think of anyone who's kind of on the rise who might have those traits.
No, you're right. Oli Udoh, if we could rewind 3 years, he would have been the guy that we were still drooling over. Now, obviously, they tried the experiment at right guard, didn't really pan out. Still a solid backup swing tackle, still in the younger half of his career, but just inconsistent at best. But when you look at the tools and the traits, man, him coming out of Elon College in the 7th round, another Rick Spielman kind of throw the dart up on the board with all these 7th round picks. You look back for a 7th round pick to find a rotational swing tackle. I mean, I think you're going to take that more times than not. I think with the starters, though, at this point now, really, you just hope and pray Brian O'Neill makes, a full and speedy recovery back from that Achilles injury and just looks like the same guy once he actually gets out on the field. How about running backs? Because, we've all assumed Dalvin, he's not going to be on the team post June 1st now. So you got Madison, Ty, Kene, and now the rookie Dwayne McBride, who, you and I both love as a first and second down kind of monster. I give a slight edge to Kene over Ty Chandler personally here because Kene at his pro day, not the combine, but the pro day, was an absolute track star. He ran a 4.31 with a 1.45 10-yard split, which is out of this world. That would have been the fastest of this class by 2/100ths of a second over Demario Davis, the TCU wide receiver who was drafted by the Chargers. Had great jump numbers, 38-inch vert, 10.5 broad, 6.8 3-cone. That would have been top 5 fastest in this year's group, again, among any position, not just running backs. And then he throws up 22 bench reps on top of it at 210 pounds. Kenny's a baller, man. He's got the turbo button when he gets going. He needs to be involved in this offense more this year. We've seen the dynamic presence in the return game, and that's why KOC, I think, just needs to find a way to get the ball in this dude's hands. Ty Chandler, I don't know what you think, but honorable mention for sure. Got to be mentioned at least. Ran a 4.38 40. Really wowed KOC to the point where he used an early day 3 pick on him last year, even with Dalvin Cook, Madison, and Kene on the roster last year. So 2 premium athletes, I think, in the Vikings backfield for KOC to work with in 2023. What's your thoughts on this running back situation?
Yeah, undoubtedly, Kene's got the full package as an athletic profile. If you're looking at speed, agility, explosiveness, he's got all 3. Chandler is a straight line speed guy, and we haven't fully seen what he's capable of doing on a football field. Now, Kene seems to have a very specific set of skills. He's the track guy, right? Like you said, he's a track star, and he actually is. Like, he was a track guy at Iowa State, and for sure in high school, where I think he set state records. Kene uses that on special teams to get from one end zone to the other and take it 100 yards. Ty Chandler doesn't quite have the agility, the explosiveness from a testing standpoint, but he might be a better running back than Kene Nwangwu. It seems like the team really prefers him as that number 2 to Alexander Mattison this year. So I can't wait to see what he can do. 4.38, that's nothing to blush at, even though it's not quite Kene's speed. That's really, really fast. And if he can pair that with some strength in the run game, I think Chandler could be the back of the future for the Vikings.
Yeah, so Isaiah Pacheco, right, at the Combine last year, no-namer from Rutgers, runs the fastest 40 of any running back. He obviously goes on to have this killer rookie year, wins the Super Bowl with the Chiefs. In fact, I think he's a big reason everyone's kind of moving towards these running back by committee rotations now. Hey, I can find these guys in the 7th round. Anyways, Pacheco runs the fastest with a 4.37, tied with Pierre Strong, if you remember. Shout out Brookings, South Dakota Jackrabbits. He gets drafted by New England, doesn't play much last year. But who's the 3rd fastest? Not Breece Hall, not Kenneth Walker, not James Cook, Ty Chandler, 4.38. The dude can scoot. Like you say, he's got wheels. And again, we know KOC kind of handpicked this guy for a reason. So like you, I think we're all just we're just awfully excited to see how they deploy this running back by committee rotation once we're in the thick of the season. I think they're going to start with Madison, a healthy dose, 70-80% of the touches and carries those first 4 or 5 weeks. But after that, I think it's anybody's game. It's just how it depends on, how these guys look at practice and so forth as well. I think we can skip the quarterbacks. Not much there. I think we'd both give the nod probably to Jaron Hall over Kirk Cousins, over Nick Mullins. No shocker there. So coming up, we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. But first, quick reminder, don't forget, we're presented by FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Locked On, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the MLB. Twins continue their series with the Dodgers tonight. Bailey Ober on the mound. He's taking on Clayton Kershaw. You can get the Twins plus 180 tonight. Over under, currently sitting at 8. Get in on all the action at FanDuel.com/lockedon. And remember, if you're a new customer, try out the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Download the easy-to-use FanDuel app. Get your winnings instantly. Money lines, parlays, prop bets. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire MLB season. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Locked On. All right, Sam, let's continue to rifle through the best athletes on the Vikings roster, going position by position. Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball in the trenches. Kenny Willekes, Michigan State, 2-time captain. Write that name down, though. Tell your friends. 6th most athletic combine tester in 2020, according to Next Gen Stats. But if I'm including the edge rushers, which I am, this doesn't come as a shocker. I got to roll with Danielle Hunter. I know he's been plagued by injuries, but when healthy, he's an absolute, Greek god. Is that the best way to describe this man? 6'5", yeah, 255. Ran in the 4.5s at that size, which is just off the charts. Everyone knew when he came out, he was one of the most physically gifted pass rushers in that class. It was just a matter of tapping into, that raw ball of clay and molding his technique, giving him a pass rush plan. Zimmer obviously thought he could do it with the help of Andre Patterson. They unlocked the beast, if you will. And you've seen when he's on, there's just not many athletic pass rushers quite like Danielle Hunter. A true Pro Bowl type of player when healthy. Danielle Hunter, I think, without a doubt, pound for pound, the most athletic player in the Vikings front seven. Agree? Disagree? You got another name to fling out there?
No, that's obviously the #1 answer, and I think it's a far drop until the next most athletic guy might be DJ Wonnum. I think Wonnum kind of is who he is at this point. I don't know if in year 4 he's suddenly going to turn a corner and become kind of that lanky athletic piece that we hoped he could. Not everybody can be Danielle Hunter, but DJ Wonnum, 4.73, that's really good. 35-inch vert. 10-foot broad jump for his size. That's all very, very good. Has it translated? No. Do I think he'll be on the roster beyond this year? No. But he's probably #2 on the defensive line. And you can't necessarily lump the edges with the defensive tackles, but
right.
There aren't a lot of specimens in that group that I'm salivating about right now. Let's put it that way.
No, well said. We talked a lot about the Colts draft this year and all the freak athletes. That's exactly the kind of pick Danielle was for the Vikings at that time. Huge reach at the time. Guy only had 1.5 sacks his final year coming out of LSU, but it was the traits. It was the physical profile. The raw potential was all there. And it doesn't always work out, doesn't always pan out, right? But when you hit on a guy like that in the 3rd round, no less, it can change your entire defense in a heartbeat. And it kind of did. It really helped put the Vikings over that hump in a big way, especially in the pass rushing department. Kenny Willekes, I know I also mentioned him. I love him. And then Calvin Avery, the UDFA nose tackle from Illinois. Don't forget about him. 6'1", 345 pounds, 31 bench reps, and a 31-inch vert. So he's got the power and lower leg explosion you love to see as well. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, 9th-ranked defensive tackle in the country, according to Rivals.com. So just excited to see all these guys in training camp as well. All right, linebacker, Sam. Brian Asamoah hasn't seen the field much yet, but when he's, actually gotten some playing time, the guy looks like an absolute heat-seeking missile out there. Exactly what he was known for coming out of Oklahoma. I know he was clocked at 4.56 or whatever, but on the field, you just watch the tape. he's got legitimate 4-4 play speed. I mean, you can just see it on film. He's a tremendous athlete. He's been outstanding out in space. And arguably, I think his best trait is blitzing. He's so explosive, dynamic blitzer. And I think Brian Flores is going to unlock this guy's best traits and maximize his potential, specifically on third down, getting him into the backfield any way he can. He's going to be a lot of fun, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, it was obvious pretty quickly, and I know you were out at training camp watching as well. He just plays fast. I mean, the Vikings have drafted undersized linebackers in previous years with Chaz Surratt, Troy Dye. They haven't been able to touch what Brian Asamoah did in just one training camp. I mean, you could tell he was a player. You could tell that he was going to make an impact, and we talked about it all summer on the Football Machine. We said Brian Asamoah is going to play key snaps for this team, and he did. He worked his way into the lineup, and in fact, he halfway replaced Jordan Hicks in some of those big games. So his trajectory is off the charts. And you're right, like these guys have kind of these 40 times, but who can translate that to wearing pads and playing on the field? And Brian Asamoah clearly carries the pads well, as they like to say in evaluator circles. Can't wait to see what he can do this year. I think he's easily the number one linebacker in terms of like high upside athlete. It's off the charts.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the secondary? I kind of had a tough time with this one because Vikes drafted a lot of, I guess you'd call them non-traditional athletes this year, right? Mekhi Blackmon, Jay Ward back there. I thought Lewis Seen, okay, maybe Lewis Seen. Yeah, pretty solid combine numbers. Kalen Barnes, he's the track star. He ran that 4.23 coming out in Indy. But I think top to bottom, the best athlete back there is Andrew Booth Jr. Didn't run at the combine or pro day, but he was clocked and reported to run a 4.38 at Clemson at one point, which is outstanding for his size. You see him on film. He's got true number one cornerback shutdown potential someday, to the point where you can leave this guy out on an island. He kept up with all the fastest wideouts you went against in the ACC. He's quick. He's twitchy. I mean, there isn't a ton of freak athletes back in the secondary, Sam, but Booth, I think, has the most potential from a physical standpoint. His only problem right now has just been staying healthy. But if he can, he could be a huge piece of this secondary for a long time, and that would be a huge hit on Kwesi's report card. Guy in the secondary, best athlete. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if we can even count Kalon Barnes. I don't know if he can play, but he did run a 4.23. Yeah, like he does have that going for him. I don't think he's going to make this team. I just don't think he has the technique or the football skills to do it. But he is definitely a specimen. Caleb Evans ran a 4.46. At that size, at 6'2", that's a really, really good time. Broad jump, 10 feet 9 inches, vertical 36 inches. Like he had a lot of good testing. And I think we saw him translate that nicely to the field in his rookie year. So Evans is kind of that one corner you have that he's got the size that you want. He's got 6'2" wingspan going on. I'm really optimistic about Evans' future. I think he's got some tools.
No, I like that. A lot of young corners, just like this entire defense, Sam. Just kind of roll the dice, throw them all in a hat, and see what pops out, see what sticks to the wall here for Brian Flores. So, after hearing all those athletes we just ripped off on the roster, what's your biggest takeaways, I guess? Because for me, I think two things. When you look at this group of wideouts and running backs now, this offense has the potential, Sam, I think, to be special. Like, we're talking top 3 in the league in multiple categories type of special. Such a dynamic group of athletic playmakers on that side of the ball now, with obviously Kevin O'Connell calling the shots. And then 2, we just spoke about that defense. Brian Flores, I think, with his track record, former head coach, defensive savant, comes from the Bill Belichick tree. I think he's going to tap into some of these young, raw talents that we really haven't seen a ton from yet. We really don't know what's going on about some of these guys. He's going to turn 1 or 2 of them into legitimate playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. I think Asamoah is probably the easy answer there. That makes a lot of sense. But maybe a guy like Kenny Willekes, Andrew Booth, Lewis Seen, there's a lot of raw athletic ability for him to come in, turn things around, and get this defense back to respectability again. Question is, I mean, how long does it take? The other thing, too, you brought up kind of a good point. The NFL now, you don't get a ton of practice time anymore, right? Just with the rules and regulations. So as a coach, you not only have to be maximizing your time on the field with these guys, but you got to be really smart about what you're doing. All right, we got 60 minutes in pad. We got 90 minutes in pads. We got to get every minute. We got to soak up every single second we can out of developing and progressing these guys. You just really don't know, Sam. I mean, it's one thing to see him out on the field, get a little taste. All right, what numbers are you wearing? All right, jersey looks good. Okay, he's a big dude. But you just don't know with these trench guys until you actually put the pads on and hear those pads pop. So going to be interesting to see, again, with so many young guys, how this coaching staff really takes hold and tries to develop a lot of these young core players that are going to play pivotal roles in 2023. All right, last quick one here, Sam. Minicamp underway. Vikings players, again, out on the field in their new jerseys. Were you out there at TCO at all? Did you see any of these guys in action? Or if not, did you hear any, I don't know, news or notes you can share with us? Any sources or outlets that you may have? Anything to report from Vikings minicamp?
All right, so they had 3 days of minicamp, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Media was invited one of those days, and that was a day where I was at the doctor with my 2-year-old. So I wasn't there in person, but the reports out of there were that Andre Carter really stood out, which I think was a concern about his, like, is he physically ready to compete? People were worried about maybe he's a little too thin. Maybe he needs to add some weight. Maybe stepping up in class from Army to the NFL, maybe that's a little too big a step. And it sounds like he kind of held his own, at least in a rookie camp setting. It is difficult to stand out, I think, in like you said, when you're not really full contact. But little piece of breaking news. From that rookie camp, the Vikings have signed 2 players, Luke. So clearly they saw something from Zach Ogiel, a Minnesota Duluth product.
Fullback tight end hybrid, right?
And what does that mean, Luke? That means they have 2 UMD not UMD grads. Ham is from Duluth and went to Augustana, and Ogiel went to Duluth. So you've got 2 Duluth connections at fullback now, which is crazy. That's my hometown, by the way, Duluth, Minnesota. Rep them. And the Vikings have signed Sam Schluter, offensive lineman who went to Minnesota
Gophers
in college, Victoria, Minnesota native. So you got some serious Minnesota local connections from the rookie camp that are now on the roster.
Yeah, and Ben Ellefson, I believe, is a Minnesota native as well. So maybe 4 Minnesota boys on the Minnesota Vikings roster. Pretty cool. You know, if I was going to say, all right, Sam, here's the one thing I want you to go watch if you go out to minicamp, it'd be Jaren Hall, right? I'm sure he's probably the talk of the town, or all eyes were on him. I think KOC got up to the podium after one of those practices when the media was available, as you mentioned, and maybe it was Ben Gessling, I believe, asked him, hey, what do you think about Jaren Hall? And I think he kind of leaned into, yeah, I'm not going to lie. Maybe I spend a little bit too much time watching him, but think about it. This is his first quarterback he's drafted. This is his baby. He's got a side project now going on outside of running the entire ship, the entire show for the Vikings in the 2023 season. It's going to be very interesting to watch Jaren Hall's progression after the Kellen Mond failure. Mike Zimmer didn't really feel like he was giving Kellen Mond a lot of love, did it, right away? It almost feels like a complete 180 or polar opposite situation for Jaren Hall that he's walking into compared to Kellen Mond. So all good things, I think, being drafted by KOC, being handpicked by him. And I'm just very curious and interested, again, just to watch the development and progression of Jaren Hall throughout these mini camps, OTAs, training camp, preseason, you name it. I think he's going to get a lot of valuable playing time. And I'm interested to see how quickly he can get up to speed in Kevin O'Connell's playbook.
I have heard kind of like just some whispers and rumblings about, why the Vikings took Jaren Hall, what they like about Jaren Hall. And I thought that some of the rationale that I've heard coming from the team about quarterbacks of that size and why they're actually not, really concerned about the size at all. It's because when you are that size, you've grown up that size and you've learned to play at that size. So Jaren Hall has perfected the skill of kind of moving his feet subtly in the pocket to find those throwing windows. He's learned to have vision downfield where he has to kind of see through guys to find those gaps in the coverage. he's just very accustomed to do it. Whereas when you're taller and you're younger, you might not have that problem until you get to the NFL. And then suddenly there's all these tall trees in front of you that are blocking your vision. Jaren Hall has always been disadvantaged with his size and has learned to play that way. And the Vikings feel like he's very accustomed and comfortable playing at 6 feet tall at the quarterback position. So I think there's some concerns about his arm strength, but everything else about him is pretty impressive. And you look at some of the throws he was able to make and the way he was able to move at BYU. He is an exciting prospect. I'm really excited for training camp, even if it's just a battle for the backup job. I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
You know, you bring up that smaller stature, the tight windows he's got to throw into. That was the hot topic of conversation about Bryce Young, the number one overall pick for months and months. Got all these crazy instincts. He's a playmaker, team leaders, got the arm strength, but the size was such a polarizing topic of conversation, complete opposite of Anthony Richardson. But again, going to be interesting to see a guy like that who's at that size, at that position, has never gone number one overall, similar to a Jaren Hall just in stature. And again, remember too, this is why you hired and brought in KOC. It's all about the quarterback and the offense, right? You wanted him to eventually handpick and groom and develop a quarterback for the future post Kirk Cousins era. So not saying Jaren Hall is going to be de facto guy moving forward once Kirk Cousins moves on from Minnesota, but you know, it's kind of entertaining, I think, Sam, in the background for him to know he's got a project on the side and that's going to be his baby, to see what he can do with Jaren Hall. I'm assuming you guys on the football party yesterday talked about or touched on Za'Darius Smith just a little bit. I just want to give you guys a quick update now. The Vikings draft picks, they got their first next year. They got their second. No third rounder. That's given to Detroit for the TJ Hawkinson deal. But Detroit gives us their fourth rounders. So no third, 2 fourths, 2 fifths. This is how the fifths work out. They got 2 fifths, one for the trade back with KC in this year's draft. So they got an extra fifth there. They got Cleveland's fifth for the Za'Darius Smith trade. And then they lost their own 5th round pick from Sam. Go ahead, tell him.
Jalen Reagor trade.
Jalen Reagor, yeah. So a lot of movement, Kwesi. But bottom line, no third, 2 fourths though, and 2 fifths. They got their 6th. No 7th round pick. Can't remember where that went.
One second. I'm seeing. Is it possibly 3 fifths? I'm seeing the Za'Darius 5th, obviously.
Yep.
Now hold on here. Wise from Browns. You know, I'll sort this out off air. I'm a little confused by the website. Let's just go with 2 fifths. That sounds good.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I know they got the 5th from Cleveland for Za'Darius. I know they got a 5th from Kansas City. Remember when they were on the clock in the 4th and they moved all the way back to the end of the 4th. So that'll be a late 5th rounder right there. But granted, they do have 2 fifths as of now, 2 fourths, no third, a 6th, and no 7th. And on tankathon.com, which has always been a super reliable website, no 7th. That is currently in possession by the Las Vegas Raiders. So I don't remember any trades or transactions that went down with the Raiders. Top of my head.
That was Nick Mullins' deal.
Beautiful.
And the Raiders actually gave that then to the Cowboys. So it's now a Cowboys pick.
Very interesting. Well done. Well played. I hope you text me in about an hour and a half when you do a little bit more deep digging. You say, no, they got 3 fifths. But right now, Philly, as of now, does have our original fifth.
I think it's 2
for Jalen Reagor. So a little quick update on next year's draft picks. Again, just kind of interesting to see if they can get any extra ammo for Dalvin Cook, because the more and more they stockpile, even these day 3 picks, just means you got a little bit more ammo. If next year you do want to move up, package a big deal and move all the way up into the top 10, top 5 for maybe the next quarterback post Kirk Cousins era. Going to be interesting. Quick one before we get out of here. What's your favorite game on the schedule? I mean, I'm sure everybody's just going to say the Chiefs at home, and that makes sense. You can't go wrong with that. A lot of primetime games, 5, possibly 7. 2 could get flexed near the end, Detroit and Cincy. Is it the Chiefs? And if it is the Chiefs, what's your second favorite game on the schedule?
Yeah. I know how this works. You know, I don't like to be the obvious guy. I don't want to just say what everyone else is saying. So I'm not going to say
You want to go
Chiefs.
chalk.
I'm going to go 2 weeks after that. 49ers coming to town on a Monday night. This is really when the season heats up. Late October, leaves are falling, football weather. You got prime time. You got an NFC perennial power coming in. Don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Doesn't matter. It's going to be a great atmosphere. At this point, I think you could maybe consider the Vikings. You could probably safely project the Vikings could be 4-2 because they've got the Bucks, the Panthers, the Bears. If you win those games and one more, you're 4-2 coming into primetime against the 49ers. That's a team that you could very well be competing with from a tiebreaker standpoint late in the year. That's going to be a big game. I'm excited for that a lot. That's going to be awesome.
No, that's a good one. Everybody's just glossing over and just writing off the Arizona Cardinals. Well, August 26th, Sam, all right, at the bank, preseason, week 3. Are you kidding me? I mean, lock your tickets up now, man.
Jaron Hall show.
No, I'm kidding. Everybody's just assuming. I hear everybody go, all right, go through the schedule, win, loss, win. Okay. Everybody's just chalking up a win versus the Chargers. I'm not so sure about that, man. I'm excited, and I've been enamored with the Chargers offense specifically ever since Justin Herbert took that big step with Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. We'll see what happens with him. And now a guy that a lot of Vikings fans were hoping the Vikings would draft, Quentin Johnston, in that offense. I'm just excited for this matchup. Remember, 2009, last time the Chargers were here in Minnesota, Adrian Peterson, fireworks, 296 yards. Antonio Cromartie runs a 109 field goal kick. That was short. Back to the house, breaks a record. Unbelievable back and forth game. Vikings end up winning an absolute thriller. AP breaks all sorts of records, but I think we're in for another really fun game. 2 great offenses, and you just don't get to see a guy as special as Justin Herbert, a young elite quarterback in the league, up close and personal on your home turf, obviously playing in the AFC like they are. So I like the Chargers. Chiefs, an easy one. Love that you mentioned the 49ers. Remember the last time Vikes and the Niners played on Monday Night Football? Do you remember? 2015, Zim's second year, week 1.
Oh,
absolute blowout.
Yeah.
Absolute.
Also, Kirk Cousins' first game as a Viking.
That's right.
At the bank.
Is that right?
Yeah.
2015?
2018.
Was that 2018? Okay.
2018.
I'm thinking
Vikings.
of 2015, Zimmer's second year. So
Yeah.
they played on Monday night. They played the Niners again on Monday night after that.
Korea. You're talking about the game where they
That's
just got
right.
smoked and everyone
terrible.
panicked. And then the Vikings won the division.
And everybody was crowning that 49ers rookie head coach. He looked like
Did the 49ers win another game that year?
I mean, think so.
They were so bad.
That was
such an
terrible.
inexcusable loss.
They were terrible. Vikings ended up winning double digits that year. So they turned things around. So you can't overreact. Always want to come away in week 1 with a dub for sure, but just can't overreact too much early in the season. Vikes could be down 3 games going into week 16. You got 2 games with the Lions right there, and then one with the Packers. I mean, anything can happen right at the end of the year. So going to be very fun, very interesting to follow this schedule up and down. Did you throw out a final yearly projection at all? Did we do that on the Ron Johnson show on the on the round table on Friday with Reggie Wilson? What was your final year projection for the Vikings?
Yeah, where did I end up? I think that I ended up 11-6 because I said 8-4 bye and then a 3-2 finish. And I believe, Luke, you were 7-5 bye and a 3-2 finish, so you had him at 10-7.
10-7. I had him losing on the road at Soldier and at Lambeau, and I think Ron Johnson is still recovering from his heart attack that he had. He couldn't believe that the Vikings would go into Soldier and Lambeau and lose those games. And
he thinks that Reggie's 9-8 was a hot, spicy take, but that's the over-under. The over-under is 8.5. Reggie was over. A hot take, I think. And Luke, I don't rule anything out, in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that you could realistically say it's a 7-10 team. Like based on the defense, if they were 7-10, I would not be surprised. I don't think that's what's going to happen because the offense is too good, but that would not shock me if things went poorly. And, Kirk Cousins' contract year, maybe he takes a step back. Nothing would surprise me.
I think you always start in the division first and foremost, right? You hear all the coaches and players say before the Super Bowl, we just want to win the division. Everybody in this division, Packers, Lions, and Bears, all got better. I mean, yes, Packers are going to figure out here real quick.
Packers got better?
I think so. Yeah, I do. Was Aaron Rodgers good last year? Is he even good anymore? We'll see about Jordan Love. You're right. Okay, I'll pump the brakes. You're right. That was a hot take.
Yeah.
Outside of the quarterback for the Packers, every team got better. The Lions got significantly better. Did the Vikings get any better, Sam? Did they get better?
No.
Did they stay the same, or did they get worse?
They're worse.
So, I mean...
But the coordinator could be everything. It's all... Literally, Flores is 100%. The most important person in the organization right now.
Well said. We'll leave it at that. Well said, Sam. Brian Flores, big job to do, big shoes to fill. But if there's anybody that could do it, turn this defense around, it'd be Brian Flores. All right, great stuff per usual, Sam. That's a wrap today. Remember, like, rate, review, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Join us every day for another episode of The Football Party. It's your one-stop shop breakdown of everything Minnesota Vikings. Don't forget, we're a podcast too, free and available, all platforms. Subscribe. Drop us that 5-star review. Find us now streaming on your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick devices, and just look out for our Locked On Sports Minnesota app there as well. That's the man, Sam Ekstrom on Twitter, at Sam Ekstrom. Check him out every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Co-host of The Ron Johnson Show. Thanks for tuning into The Football Party, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. We're back tomorrow with the mailbag edition with Reggie Wilson. But until then, I'm Luke Inman on Twitter, at Luke_Spinman. Signing out.